So Simple tutorial. Good morning students, welcome to SST So Simple tutorial. In the previous class we had learned about the indentured laborers. Today we are going to discuss Unit 2.6 Indian Trade, Colonialism and the Global System. My dear students, India was a home to fine cotton. Indian cotton had a worldwide market including Britain. These were paid for in gold and silver, and this is the principal reason what prompted the East India Company to gain monopoly rights over trade with India in the 17th century. With the coming of industrial revolution in Britain, things began to change fast. First of all, the industrialists pressurized its government to put a restriction on the import of cotton to protect the local industries. So, to promote the interests of the British textile industries, the British government imposed heavy import duty on the import of cloth in Britain. Thus, the export of Indian cotton declined drastically. Just look at the stats of exports from India. This tells us the rate of decline. From 30% around 1800 to 15% by 1815 to 3% by 1870s. Now, whereas the exports of manufactures declined, exports of something else rose. What are they? First of all, the export of raw cotton, it rose from 5% to 35% between 1812 and 1871. Indigo, as such, remained an important item for export. Next, opium. From 1820s, opium also became India's largest export to China for some time. In fact, Britain grew opium in India and exported it to China, and with the money earned through this sale, it financed its tea and other imports from China. Then you have food grains. Export of food grains also increased to Britain as well as to the rest of the world. In the beginning of the lesson, we were discussing that the industrial groups pressurized the government to do something to protect the local producers. So they imposed import duties on cotton textile imports. Okay. But at the same time, the industrialists persuaded the East India Company to sell British manufactures in Indian markets. Thus, British textile goods freely entered India. Over the 19th century, British manufacturers flooded the Indian markets. Thus, Britain had a trade surplus with India. I hope you all understand this term trade surplus. Let me briefly explain this to you. Trade surplus occurs when the value of total exports of a country exceeds the value of imports of the country. For example, say total value of India's exports to Britain in some year was rupees 5 crore and total value of India's imports from Britain was rupees 4 crore. In this case, India would be said to have a trade surplus with Britain. The value of surplus will be rupees 1 crore. Okay. So Britain had a trade surplus with India. Britain used this surplus to balance its trade deficits with other countries. Britain also used this surplus to pay the home charges. Home charges included private remittances from India to Britain by British officials and traders, interest payment on India's external debt and pensions of British officials in India. With this, let me stop here. Time for probable questions now. 1. How did colonialization of India affect India's cotton industry? 2. Name at least 4 items of export from India to Britain during the 19th century. 3. What was the use of Britain's trade surplus with India during the 19th century? Read your textbook now and prepare the questions given. In the next class, we will start Unit 3, the Interwar Economy. Till then, keep reading and have a nice time. Thank you.